Sudhir Kapadia, who's National Tax Leader at Ernst & Young. He's joining in with his take on taxes on the super rich, GAR, GST roadmap, to just name a few. Mr. Kapadia, many thanks for taking time out for us. I'm going to start by asking you, there's been a lot of buzz surrounding that possible tax on the super rich. Do you think that the Finance Minister will go ahead with it, given that business sentiment is still pretty weak?
If we try and increase the taxation on dividends and capital gains, this is wrong timing, because we all know that we need to do a lot more to encourage investments in the capital market, and that is where I think the Finance Minister's challenge will be. That is this the right year to try and increase taxation on this important element of unearned income. When we come to earned income, or really salary income, largely speaking, as a manner of speaking, the challenge is twofold. One is that are we looking at harmonizing, for example, the current maximum marginal rate, which is 30.9% for individuals and nearly 33% for corporates. I think there is arguably headroom here. It's a low-hanging fruit for the Finance Minister to say that, look, the personal tax rate should harmonize with the corporate rate, and why not? How much more revenue will that get for the government? Frankly, I don't know. It might be modest, given that is only the salaried class, which will be directly impacted of this measure. But yeah, that can be done. If we are looking at a super rich rate, 35%, 40% above a threshold of 1 crore, etc., by the government's own admission, there are very few taxpayers on the record with that kind of income. You can do it, but without increasing the tax base, it is only trying to extract more from the current band of salaried taxpayers in that very high tax bracket, and nothing beyond that. So I think these are the issues to be considered, when we talk about taxing the super rich.
Fair point. The other tax around which there is a fair amount of speculation is the inheritance tax. Philosophically, there seems to be a case for inheritance tax. What's your own view? Do you think it should be reintroduced in this budget?
Is there a whole host of stuff which the state gives back to the citizens, because of which this kind of inheritance tax can be justified? I mean, it's an open question. It can be open to debate, and therefore a case has to be made out that because the ecosystem in the state, provided by the state, is of such a high order, that an inheritance tax is something which is justifiable. So that, as I said, is an open question for debate. On the first one, as I said, double taxation, it surely is, because you are taxing something on which tax has already been paid out. And I think the more important part, Sandeep, perhaps, at least as we speak for this and the next fiscal year, is that is it really going to give us that incremental revenues which are so badly needed to maintain the fiscal deficit? I think more than the philosophical question is the practical, commercial, hardcore question, that how much more revenue are we expecting to get, and how far we are going to have the tentacles of inheritance tax therefore spread out if we want to really make that much more revenue. Is the timing right? Are the revenue going to be that significant? I think those are the more burning questions, if you ask me, than the tax philosophical questions.
Okay, what about retro taxes? While the Finance Minister has cleared the air on GAR, there's still a fair amount of uncertainty over retro taxes. What do you expect to hear from Finance Minister P. Chidambaram on retro taxes in this budget?
Now, Sandeep, that's a good question, and I think what we have to bear in mind that the last budget, fortunately or unfortunately, had as many as 28 instances of retrospective amendments. So the question is that, does the current Finance Minister have the leeway to essentially roll back these many retrospective amendments on the basis of the Shom Committee recommendation that retrospective amendments should only be resorted to on the rarest of rare cases and not otherwise. So I think that's again the larger philosophical question. Coming to the most talked about retrospective amendments on indirect transfers, certainly, that's an option available to the Finance Minister to say, because of all the uncertainty that has been created in respect of M&A transactions, it makes eminent sense to roll it back and bring whatever checks and balances you want to bring in only prospectively. So that's one option. If for whatever reasons the finance minister is not able to do this rollback of retrospective amendment, then we have plan B, which has been recommended by Shom himself in his report, which is to say that you need to exempt interest and penalties for past taxation or taxation on past transactions. That's the minimum which should be done. And again, the checks and balances to be introduced on a prospective basis. So this is the least expected of the finance minister when he stands up, on February 28.
Mr. Kapadia, the FM has always believed in moderate taxes and high compliance. In fact, he was the one who drastically cut tax rates as FM in 2007. But given the pressure now to raise revenues, do you think the FM will be forced to hike taxes this time round?
No, I think his default option will be to exactly do what you said, to keep the rates unchanged and look at ways to increase the base. For example, just to add one more point to corporate taxation on the MAT rate, there may be a temptation to increase the MAT rate because that's the minimum rate in any case, and that does away with the need to tinker with the actual corporate tax rate of 33%. So I think the inclination, personally I feel, would be to retain the overall rates of taxation, to try and increase the tax base, do away with unnecessary exemptions, and retain that principle of moderate rates of taxation with better compliance. It's challenging times for the finance minister given the current situation. How does he manage to do it in a manner of speaking is something to be seen. But I think that would be, as I said, his default option should other things remain the same.
So Sudhir Kapadia, thank you so much for taking time out and joining in with that perspective on what to expect on the taxation front from Finance Minister P. Chidambaram this budget. Of course, we'll continue getting big CEOs and big industry leaders every day on Business Tonight with their expectation from the union budget this year. We're calling it time to deliver.